The lawyer cleared his throat in the hushed opulent conference room, high above Manhattan streets. According to the late Richard Thompson's explicit wishes, the Thompson real estate empire and all its assets will pass solely to the male heirs of the family line. My brother Ryan leaned back with a satisfied smirk while my uncle Victor nodded firmly, and my mother Evelyn kept her eyes fixed on the polished table. I rose slowly, my pulse hammering in my ears, and took Nora's hand in mine, feeling her steady warmth ground me against the coming storm. "This is Nora, my wife, and we are here together to face this will head on," I said, my voice clear and unwavering despite the knot in my stomach. The room froze for one heartbeat, then erupted into chaos. Uncle Victor shot to his feet, his face flushing deep red as he jabbed a finger toward us. "What kind of insult is this, Lila? Your father built this empire for a son to lead, not for you to parade some woman in here, as if it changes tradition." Mother gasped, covering her mouth with trembling hands, her eyes wide with a mix of horror and heartbreak. "Lila, how could you do this to us after everything we sacrificed for you?" Ryan let out a sharp laugh, but his eyes were ice cold. "Wife, really, sis? Dad would roll over in his grave seeing you pull this stunt just to grab what isn't yours." The words landed like blows, but I held my ground, Nora's fingers tightening around mine in silent solidarity. This moment had been building for years, the final breaking point in a lifetime of quiet battles. Growing up in our sprawling Westchester home, I had always felt the invisible weight of being the only daughter in a family obsessed with carrying on the Thompson name through sons. Father had been proud of my straight as in my early work in the company, but his offhand comments about needing a strong male hand at the helm cut deeper than he knew. When I first realized my feelings for women in high school, I buried them deep, terrified of the disappointment that would follow. College at NYU brought freedom, and then Nora, the gentle elementary school teacher with a laugh that made the world feel lighter. Our connection started as late-night study sessions turned into stolen weekends, and eventually a love so real I could no longer hide it. We married quietly in a small Boston courthouse 3 years ago, surrounded only by a handful of trusted friends. I never told my family. The fear of losing them entirely kept me silent, even as Father's health declined. I spent his last months at his bedside managing his care, while hiding my wedding ring and the truth. Mother had pushed me relentlessly toward suitable men from our circle, whispering that a proper marriage would secure my place and the inheritance. "You owe it to the family, Lila," she would say, her voice laced with worry. "Don't throw away your future for confusion." Those conversations left scars that still ache now as I faced their judgment. The lawyer, Mr. Hargrove, adjusted his glasses, looking distinctly uneasy. "Miss Thompson, this is highly unusual. The will is quite specific about male succession. Perhaps we should continue without additional complications." "Complications?" I echoed, my tone sharpening. "Or just an excuse to erase me because I refuse to live as half a person? I've poured my sweat into this company, turning around 2 divisions my brothers nearly drove into the ground with their reckless spending and bad deals. Nora is my partner, my equal, and if the will ignores that reality, then I will take this to court where equality still means something." Victor slammed his palm on the table, the sound cracking like thunder. "This woman has no claim here. She is not blood. She is not family. Your father made his views on this lifestyle very clear." Mother reached out a hand toward me, her voice breaking. "Please sit down, darling. Think of the legacy your father worked his whole life for. Don't let one choice destroy everything." Inside me a storm raged. Part of me still yearned for their approval, the little girl who once sat on Father's knee dreaming of making him proud. But another part, the one Nora had helped awaken, knew that approval built on lies was no approval at all. The price of silence had been my own soul, chipped away year after year until I barely recognized myself. Nora leaned close, her voice low and calm. "Only for me. We can leave if it's too much, love, but I am with you either way." Her words were the anchor I needed, reminding me why I had chosen this path. Ryan leaned forward, his smirk fading into something uglier. "You think bringing her here makes you the heir? Dad left instructions to avoid exactly this kind of complication. You're embarrassing the family name, Lila." I met his gaze, seeing not just my brother but the boy who once teased me and now saw me as a threat to his easy path to millions. "The family name? You mean the one I helped save while you gambled on risky ventures? Dad had to bail you out of more than once." The arguments swirled around us, voices overlapping, accusations flying like daggers. Mother wept openly, pleading for peace, while Victor threatened to have security remove us. I felt every word as a fresh wound, the societal weight of their prejudice pressing down, the same prejudice that had kept me in the closet for so long, fearing not just disownment, but the quiet erasure of my identity. Yet standing there with Nora beside me, I felt a spark of clarity. This was not only about the money or the empire, it was about claiming my right to exist fully without apology. The cost was already mounting, the fractured glances from people who once tucked me in at night. But I could not turn back now. The confrontation had only just begun, and the true price was yet to be paid. As the shouting continued, I felt the room close in, the elegant wood paneling and crystal chandelier suddenly feeling like a cage designed to trap me in their version of who I should be. Uncle Victor turned to the lawyer, his voice booming with authority. "Hargrove, do something. This is a family matter, not a circus." Mr. Hargrove raised his hands in a placating gesture, but his eyes betrayed his discomfort. "Everyone, please, let's maintain order. The will must be read in full before any challenges." Mother dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief, her voice trembling. "Lila, I raised you better than this. You know what the family stands for: tradition, stability, a clear line of succession." I could see the genuine pain in her face. The woman who had bandaged my scraped knees and attended every school play now looked at me as if I were a stranger. That hurt more than any of Victor's bluster, because it forced me to confront the moral tangle I had wrestled with for years. Was my love for Nora truly selfish if it meant watching my mother age alone with only memories of a broken family? Or was staying hidden the greater betrayal, a slow poison that would have eroded me until nothing real remained? Nora had never asked me to choose, but every quiet evening at our small apartment in Brooklyn, she had listened as I poured out the guilt, the what-ifs, the fear that one day I would regret standing up. Flashbacks hit me hard as Ryan continued his tirade. "Remember the summer I turned 26 when I finally told Father about Nora in his study, the same room where he had taught me to read balance sheets?" His face had gone stony, his only response a quiet disappointment that lingered for months. He stopped inviting me to company dinners, stopped asking about my life beyond work. Mother filled the silence with endless setups, blind dates with sons of business partners, each one a reminder that my truth was unacceptable. I had almost broken, then almost agreed to a sham engagement just to keep the peace. But Nora had held me through the tears, reminding me that real love doesn't require hiding. We built our life together anyway, my career in the family firm by day, our shared home by night, a careful balance that now felt like it was crumbling. The lawyer finally cleared the air by reading more of the will, but the language only fueled the fire. The primary heir must embody the values of strength, leadership, and continuity that have defined the Thompson legacy for 3 generations. Victor seized on it. "See, Lila, strength means a man at the helm, not this." I stepped forward, my free hand gesturing to the documents. "Values, Father taught me those values when he had me negotiate the biggest deal the company ever closed at 28 while Ryan was off skiing in Aspen. Continuity, I have given this company my youth, my ideas, my loyalty, even when it meant missing anniversaries with Nora to close deals." Nora spoke up for the first time, her voice steady and measured. "I am not here to take anything from anyone. I love Lila, and I support whatever she decides, but she deserves to be seen for who she is." The room turned on her mother, shaking her head. "Dear, you don't understand the sacrifices this family has made, the expectations." Ryan snorted. "Sacrifices like hiding who you are to protect the brand. Lila always was the favorite until she decided to rebel." His words carried a sting of jealousy, the brother who had coasted on the family name now facing the possibility that his easy path was blocked. Inside my mind the debate raged louder than the voices around me. Part of me wanted to walk out, leave the millions and the empire behind, and build something new with Nora, free from the weight of legacy. But another part, the daughter who had sat by Father's hospital bed holding his hand as machines beeped, knew the business was more than money. It was the result of generations of hard work, and I had contributed to its growth in ways they refused to acknowledge. Choosing Nora meant risking permanent estrangement. Choosing silence meant losing myself. The moral line blurred with every accusation, the price of truth measured in broken relationships, and the fear that I might become the villain in their story, the one who destroyed what Father built. The tension escalated as Victor threatened legal action, claiming the will could be contested on grounds of undue influence if I pushed. Mother begged me again, her voice cracking. "Think of your future children, Lila. How will they fit into this world you are creating?" The question pierced deep because Nora and I had talked about adoption one day, but the family prejudice made even that dream feel distant. I looked at Nora, her eyes full of quiet faith, and felt the awakening that had been growing since we said our vows. She was my family now, the one I chose, and who chose me without conditions. As the meeting dragged on with more heated exchanges, I realized the real battle was not just for the inheritance, but for the right to define my own worth. The family I loved was fracturing before my eyes, each word a betrayal, each defense a cost paid in tears and lost trust. Yet standing with Nora, I felt a strength I had never known before, the kind that comes from finally refusing to apologize for existing as I am. The afternoon wore on, the sun shifting across the city skyline outside the windows, but inside the storm showed no sign of ending. I had opened the door to truth, and now there was no closing it. Hours seemed to pass in the conference room, though the clock showed only minutes, the air thick with unspoken resentments finally voiced. Ryan paced near the window, his expensive suit rumpled. "You always thought you were better, Lila, the smart one, the responsible one. But look at you now, throwing it all away for what? A relationship that goes against everything we believe." I felt the old sibling rivalry flare mixed with sadness for the brother I once built forts with in the backyard, now reduced to this. Mother turned to Nora, her tone almost pleading. "You seem like a nice girl, but you must see how this tears us apart." Lila was raised with certain expectations. The family name carries weight in our circles. Nora met her gaze without flinching. "I see the pain, Mrs. Thompson, but I also see Lila, the woman who has carried the weight of those expectations alone for too long. She deserves to live openly without fear of losing her place." Victor interrupted, waving a copy of the will. "The document is ironclad, male line only, no loopholes for modern trends." I countered quickly, pulling out my own folder of documents I had prepared in secret. "Trends or basic fairness? I have emails from father praising my work on the Chicago expansion, the one that added $12 million to the bottom line while Ryan was busy with his startup that failed spectacularly." The room quieted for a moment as they absorbed that, but Victor recovered fast. "Emails don't override blood and tradition." The confrontation dug deeper into past wounds. I recounted the night father had a mild episode, and I drove him to the hospital alone because Ryan was unreachable and mother was out of town. I stayed by his side all night, listening to him ramble about the company, his regrets, his hopes. He never said the words about my sexuality, but in his weakened state he squeezed my hand and whispered, "Take care of what matters, Lila." I had interpreted that as permission to be true, but now facing the family, it felt like a fragile thread I was pulling until it snapped. Internal guilt gnawed at me as I spoke. Was I using father's illness to justify my stand? Or was I honoring the man who raised me by refusing to live a lie? Nora had been my confidant through those hospital vigils, bringing me coffee and reminding me that love doesn't diminish duty, it redefines it. But the family saw only betrayal. Mother whispering to Victor about how my coming out had aged father prematurely. Ryan accusing me of poisoning the legacy with my choices. The societal prejudice hung heavy in their words, the same whispers I had heard at family gatherings about other relatives who strayed from the norm, now directed at me. As the arguments intensified, Nora pulled me aside for a brief moment in the hallway outside the room. "Lila, if this is too much, we can fight later from outside. The pressure is crushing you." I looked into her eyes, seeing the woman who had sacrificed her own family gatherings to support mine, the one who never demanded I choose, but always stood ready. Her presence reminded me of the awakening that had begun the day we met, the realization that my happiness was not a luxury but a necessity. Yet the cost was mounting, the potential loss of the only family I had known, the business that had defined my identity for so long. Back in the room, the lawyer attempted to regain control, reading the remaining clauses, but each one seemed to favor the male heirs more clearly. Victor pressed the advantage. "See, Lila, even the language supports us. You are a daughter, not an heir." I felt the moral dilemma sharpen. Should I walk away, preserve what was left of family ties, and build a new life with Nora, or fight for what I had earned, risking everything in the process? Ryan seized on my hesitation. "See, she knows it's wrong deep down, that's why she hid it for so long." The betrayal cut deepest when mother sided with them again. "Lila, we love you, but this lifestyle is not what your father wanted for you or for the company." Her words echoed the pressure I had felt since childhood, the expectation to conform or disappear. I countered with stories of my contributions, late nights negotiating deals that saved jobs, the innovative marketing strategies I implemented while my brothers focused on personal gain. The family listened, but their faces remained closed, the prejudice too deep to penetrate easily. By the end of the session, nothing was resolved, the lawyer scheduling a follow-up, but the damage was done, bridges burning with every accusation. I left the building with Nora hand in hand, the cool New York era relief after the stifling room. but the weight of the day settled heavy on my shoulders. The price was already clear: fractured relationships, lost trust, and the haunting question of whether my truth was worth the pain I had inflicted and received. Yet as we walked toward the subway, Nora leaning into me, I felt the first glimmer of resolve. This was my life, and I would not let it be dictated by fear any longer. The days after the initial will reading blurred into a tense waiting period. Phone calls from Mother alternating between pleas and accusations, texts from Ryan filled with legal threats. I threw myself into work at the company headquarters in Midtown, trying to prove my value even as whispers followed me in the hallways. Nora kept our Brooklyn apartment a sanctuary, cooking simple meals and listening as I unpacked the emotional toll each evening. "You don't have to carry this alone," she would say, her hand on my back. But the burden felt mine alone, the daughter who was rewriting the family story. A second meeting was called 2 weeks later, the same conference room now feeling like a battlefield. Victor arrived with a lawyer of his own, a sharp-suited man who immediately challenged my presence. "The will is clear, Miss Thompson. Your marital status does not alter succession." I had come prepared with more evidence: binders of performance reports, emails from father, and even a notarized statement from the company CFO praising my leadership during the last fiscal year. The confrontation escalated quickly, Mother arriving late, her eyes red from crying. "Lila, please reconsider. We can find a way to keep the family intact without this public mess." Ryan smirked from his seat. "Public mess is right. The board is already asking questions about stability." I felt the societal pressure mount, the fear of scandal in our tight-knit business circles where reputation was currency. Internally, the dilemma tore at me: was fighting for my share an act of justice, or an act of greed that would leave my family in ruins? Nora sat beside me, quietly supportive, but I could see the strain in her posture, the way she gripped her bag. She had taken time off from teaching to be here, her own family distant and unsupportive of our marriage. The cost to her was real too: the quiet life we had built threatened by my need to claim what was mine. I whispered to her during a break, "Are you sure you want to stay through this?" She nodded firmly. "We face it together. That's what marriage means." Victor launched into a list of grievances. My coming out had caused father stress. My marriage was a direct defiance of family values. I countered with my own list: the years I had sacrificed, personal time for the company, the deals I closed that my brothers could not. The moral question loomed larger with each exchange: was loyalty to family worth erasing my identity, or was loyalty to self the only path to integrity? Ryan revealed a betrayal of his own. He had spoken to distant cousins, spreading rumors about my fitness to lead, painting me as unstable. The tension peaked when the lawyer presented a clause about moral character: the heir must uphold the family standards. Victor pounced. "Your lifestyle violates that, Lila." I stood my ground. "Standards that exclude me based on who I love are not standards, they are prejudice." Mother broke down, then sobbing about lost grandchildren and broken traditions. Her pain mirrored my own guilt, the awakening that love for Nora did not diminish my love for them, but their rejection forced a choice. As the meeting ended without resolution, I felt exhausted but clearer. The price of continuing the fight was high: potential lawsuits, lost relationships. But the price of walking away was higher: the slow death of my spirit. Nora and I left hand in hand, the city lights blurring through my tears, but her presence reminded me why the struggle mattered. The family was fracturing further, each decision carrying consequences that would echo for years, but I was no longer willing to pay with my truth. The third and final meeting arrived with a sense of inevitability, the conference room now familiar territory for our ongoing war. I had spent the intervening weeks gathering the ultimate piece of evidence, a video recorded by father 2 months before his death during one of his lucid hospital days. In it he looked frail, but his eyes were clear. "Lila, if you are watching this, I know the path you have chosen is not the one I envisioned. But I see your strength, your dedication to the company. Be true to yourself. The empire is yours if you claim it with honesty." The family gasped as the lawyer played the recording on the large screen. Victor sputtered, his face contorted. "This is fabricated. He was not in his right mind." But the timestamp and the notarized affidavit from the attending physician proved otherwise. Mother stared at the screen, tears streaming silently, the weight of father's words hitting her hard. Ryan slumped in his chair, the smugness gone, replaced by shock. I felt a mix of triumph and sorrow, the turn I had hoped for now reality, but at the cost of exposing the family to its own hypocrisies. The brothers' secrets came out in the ensuing chaos. Ryan had hidden gambling debts that threatened the company's stability. Victor had pressured father to exclude me years earlier. The moral reckoning was brutal for them, and for me the betrayal went both ways. But my fight had forced the truth into the light. Nora stood by me through it all, her quiet strength a contrast to the chaos, her hand in mine a reminder that love had carried me through. The lawyer declared the video binding, shifting the primary inheritance to me with provisions for family support. Victor threatened lawsuits, but the evidence was ironclad. Mother approached me after the others left, her voice broken. I don't understand your life, Lila. But I see now that your father did. The partial reconciliation felt hollow, the damage too deep for quick mending. I had turned the tables, but the victory tasted bittersweet, the family bonds strained to breaking. In the aftermath, the company board accepted the change with reluctance, my leadership now undeniable. Yet the personal cost loomed large, family gatherings canceled, distant relatives choosing sides, Nora and I facing the reality of a smaller, but authentic life. The awakening was complete. I was no longer the daughter hiding, but the woman standing in her truth. Months passed, the initial shock of the will reading fading into a new normal, the Thompson empire under my leadership with Nora by my side in a supportive role at home. The family remained fractured, mother calling occasionally with tentative olive branches, Ryan avoiding contact entirely, Victor filing motions that went nowhere. I threw myself into expanding the business, ethically, the moral dilemmas of the past guiding me to fairer practices that honored father's true wishes while building a legacy that included all. Nora and I found peace in our Brooklyn home, weekend walks in the park, quiet dinners where we processed the pain and celebrated the gains. The price had been steep, lost relationships, strained ties. But the reward was a life without secrets, a love lived openly. Societal prejudice still lingered in subtle ways, boardroom glances, or old friends drifting away, but we faced it together, stronger for the trial. Reflecting on the journey, I saw how each confrontation, each internal battle, had shaped me, the family pressure that once crushed now forged resilience, the prejudice that once silenced now fueled advocacy. The betrayals on both sides taught me that loyalty without honesty is fragile, the choices full of gray areas where right and wrong blurred depending on perspective. In the end, the empire continued, the family name endured but transformed. Nora and I talked often about the future, adoption, perhaps one day a child raised with the lessons we learned. The journey had cost me the illusion of unconditional family love, but given me the reality of chosen family and self-acceptance. Was I right to bring Nora to that will reading and shatter the family world as I knew it, or should I have stayed silent and preserved the illusion of unity at the cost of my own truth?